Yo, what's good YouTube? It's Jojo ASMR here. So here is what could be the most requested video I've been asked to make for the past 2 weeks, literally harassed to no end, and that is how to beat Nibiru with Unchained. Okay, I actually wanted to make this video about 2 weeks ago, but I was helping a couple players prepare for the recent 3v3 YCS, and these combos, it's not like they were secret information, but they were definitely on the down low. So I wanted to wait till after the YCS to present this information to you guys. Shoutouts to Pac for winning the event with his team. And shoutouts to him for shouting me out in his deck profile. I've been talking a lot with Pac about this deck off camera behind the scenes, trying to give him some of my insights. I literally told you guys 2 weeks ago to just Griffin lock everybody before that play was popular. And yet you see Pac and all these other players on their feature matches Griffin locking everybody. So that, trust me, I know what I'm talking about with this deck. So I wanted to wait till after the YCS to make this video. And now that, you know, the cat's out of the bag, Unchained is a really good deck, we can now talk about this information publicly. Especially with this deck gaining way more popularity, people have started adding Nibirus back to their main deck to beat Unchained. So I think it's important to know how to beat Nib. And I'm going to be presenting you some 2-card combos, some different tech options you can play and options. And this video is going to be a bit tricky to film because we're going to have to reverse engineer the combos at different points, as I'm basically going to show you what happens in every eventuality if you get nibbed at a different point in the combo. Okay, so this is going to be a bit tricky to film, so I hope you enjoy it. Hope you find this educational and resourceful. Please consider liking the video. It really does help out the channel immensely, as these aren't that easy to film. But I'll try my best, so please try best to keep up and everything. But let's get to it. Okay, so this first combo I want to be showing you involves either opening Aruha or Sharvara or Tour Guide, okay, plus one of the traps. It can be Chamber or it can be Escape. So any permutation of these, you know, either one of these three, one of these two, plays through Nibiru. Okay, so let's say we open, for example, Sharvara plus trap. We would start off by setting a trap using Sharvara to summon and pop. Trap triggers, and we're going to summon out Aruha. And if you opened Aruha in this case, you would just grab Sharvara here. Okay, sorry for the glare. You then link these off into a Yama. Got some quarter-century Yamas. You guys know how I get it. In a new chain, we go 1 Yama to Red Dog. Red Dog would then grab the other trap. Okay. And in this case, we would grab Sarama. Okay. We haven't normal summoned yet, so we're going to normal Sarama. This is summon number 4 here. We'll use Sarama's effect, targeting Aruha, because we haven't used Aruha's effect to float. So we're going to set it back, then pop. Chainlink 1, Aruha. We'll summon out Shyama. So this is the first instance now that we can get nibbed. All right. Which doesn't make a lot of sense. And you'll never usually get nibbed here because you haven't used Shyama's graveyard effect. And you haven't used the trap effect to float. So you'll never get nibbed here. It makes no sense, but some people might have rocks in their head and nib you at this case. So I'm going to show you every eventuality, every possibility of getting nibbed and what you would do in that case. Okay, so let's say you get nibbed on summon of Shyama. All right, we just got nibbed. Oh no, what are we going to do? We have a Muchi token. So we then use the effect of Shyama to pop our escape. We would go Chainlink 1, escape. That would summon out Disaster here. Sorry for the glare. Then we'd use Disaster. So let's put a nib right here just for demonstration. So we'd use the effect of our Disaster here to link off the nib. That would summon out Rage. And then from here we could link off the token and the Shyama. This will go to the bottom. Summon Makreka. Use the effect, discard a card, summon back Yama, and now through Nib, you've just Griffin locked your opponent, you discard a card, draw a card, and you would set back here Chamber, and now on their turn, you can use Chamber, summon back Rage, quick link with their monster, make a Nightmare Unicorn, discard a card, draw a card, spin a card, they're dead. Okay, so they're never going to nib you there. It makes practically no sense to nib in that instance. Most people are going to hold their Nibiru for they're going to hold their Nibiru for when you see 2 level 6s on the board. So I'm going to reverse engineer this combo to this point. okay? Because we're here to show you like every possibility of getting nibbed and what to do. So let's say they don't nib you, all good. We're going to actually link these off then into a rage. Okay. Now we can use the effect of Shayama, targeting our our chamber. And we can go Chainlink 1, chamber to summon from deck. Now, spoiler alert, for those of you that are playing against Unchained and have nib, this is actually the best time to nib. As Chainlink 2 on the trap. It's super counterintuitive, and it might not seem very obvious, but this is actually the best time to nib, because your end board is, instead of being the Griffin lock and like super cooked through nib, instead it's probably just going to be Rakea plus Makreka and Rage, which is still, like, don't get me wrong, and your nib gets outed by the way too, but that's still a lot easier to manage probably than nibbing if you let this resolve and summon Rakea. But 9 times out of 10, no one's gonna nib you. No one is like has the foresight, especially if they don't play this deck, to nib you as Chainlink 2 on the trap. That just seems super not obvious. So let's just say, I'm not gonna show it because it's never gonna happen. I mean, maybe they watch this video and they know now too, but if they would, I can show you what happens. Basically, what would happen is, let's say we did get nibbed as Chainlink 2 on the trap. This will go to the bottom. These will go here. You summon a token. All right, you would just summon out Rakea. Then you would go like effect, target the token to pop. You would trigger Yama to banish itself. You would summon back here your Sarama, and then a resolution, you would pop the Sarama because you haven't used the effect to pop. Sarama would then trigger into Disaster. Then you could like link with their nib. You can make Makreka, use Makreka, discard a card, summon back Rage, and so like you would end on something like this through nib, okay? But they lose the nib, so like this is probably more manageable if you're the opponent to deal with this, but it's still pretty hard, right? Because you're gonna have a quick link, you're gonna have effect to pop. This is gonna float back into like this. You can use this to pop this, summon out Abominable, and like pop another card. So, but it's probably a little bit easier, right, for your opponent if they nibbed you on Chainlink 2, but that's not counterintuitive. So let's just go back because they haven't used their nib. They've allowed that through. So you summon Rakea. All right. Now, what if they nib you here? All right. So let's say on resolution of the summon of Rakea, they want to use Nibiru. Well, you would just chain Rakea, pop your Rage. Now you just got nibbed. All right, all good. So we just got nibbed. Here's our token. In a new chain, because a card was destroyed, you can use the effect of your blue dog, your Rage, targeting whichever one of the extenders you didn't use. So if we started off, I think, in this combo with red dog, so we would add back Aruha here, and we would go Yama, Chainlink 2, banish, to summon back the Rakea, and this resolves, adding back Aruha. Then Yama resolves, popping the Rakea, and in a new chain, you would trigger the effect of your Rakea. That would summon out Rage. Okay. So now we're actually going to use the second effect of Rage. When it's destroyed by card effect, it can summon back from your graveyard any Unchained monster, including extra deck monsters. So check out this line. This is super cool. We're going to use Aruha's in-hand effect, as we haven't used it yet. And again, if you started off with Aruha, then you would just add back Sharvara. Okay, so whichever one of the extenders you haven't used, use the effect. Pop your Disaster. Disaster's graveyard effect will trigger to summon back your Rage. And from here, what we would do is, this is kind of nasty. You would link off your Rage, and you would link off your token to make Anguish. You'd use Anguish's effect, targeting the nib to link with it to summon out Makreka. And now you would use Makreka's effect, discarding a card to summon Anguish, and these would go into Nightmare Griffin. And so even through that, you've just still Griffin locked your opponent. You use Griffin, discard a card, draw a card, set back the chamber, and now you can still just FTK them with a Griffin lock. Okay. So that's crazy. So this is why I had to show, like, if you get nibbed at different points, because the lines change. Like, in that line, we have to use Anguish. All right, so let's say they don't want to nib us. So what would we do then? We would use the effect of Shayama, targeting our Saramata Poppet. If they chain nib, you literally do the exact same play I just showed you. You would then chain your Rakea to this to pop it, and you would just do the exact same play I showed you, invalidating the nib. So it doesn't matter, because this is a quick effect. So let's say they don't nib, this will get popped. Use Sarama, summon out Red Dog. Now they have to nib you, because you have 2 level 6s and you threaten Wave King Caesar. So they have to nib you, otherwise you just make this. But I saw some people saying, well, what if they don't nib you? What if they wait for you to make... What if they don't nib you and they wait for you to make Mudcrack and go for the Griffin line? There is no way in hell that your opponent is not even going to think for at least 5 seconds considering to nib you there or not. This basically forces out nib. If I'm playing this deck and my opponent even thinks or hesitates, you know, if you can basically gauge how good your opponent is, to be honest. And you can gauge how skillful they are. If they know this matchup, you know, you can pretty much read what if your opponent has nib or not. Because if they're going to take some time to think at this point whether or not to nib you, chances are they have nib. Now, obviously, we can then have a conversation about mind games and bluffs and all that stuff. Because if you have nib and you don't nib me here, and then I start doing the Griffin line and I get nibbed after this, you got it, bro. Like, I don't know what to say there. Like, you can't... There's only so much you can respect a card, right? But if you're that worried, if you're that scared of nib, you can just play it safe and do this and invalidate the nib completely. But keep in mind, by doing this, then you play into books. So it starts again, there's a mind game situation that starts to come up with Nibiru. If you think your opponent has books or Nibirus, personally, I always would just go for the Griffin line here anyway, because there's more copies of Book of Moon and Book of Eclipse than there are copies of Nibiru. And Book is way more standard to main deck than Nib. So to be honest, I would just go for the Griffin lock. And if they main deck Nib and they haven't nibbed me at this point, then GG, bro, you got it. But this is pretty much how you respect Nib, how you beat Nib, and how you would sequence your plays if you got nibbed anytime earlier. Okay, so that's how you beat Nib with the Anguish line and with Disaster. Now, I know what you're saying, Jojo. Some of us don't want to play this stupid blue dog brick in our decks. And I hear you. I don't really want to play this card either. So here's an option you can do to play through Nibiru without even playing this card in your deck. And it's using a card which is pretty not standard in Unchained. But here at the lab, we like to show you guys all the technology. So if you open Sharvara plus Trap, we can utilize a card in the extra deck which is in standard. So we'll go Effect, Target, Pop. Effect. It's going to summon out here Aruha, same as last time. Link these into Yama. Chain 1, chain 2. Grab this. Accept this. Alright. Now we're going to normal summon. Use the effect targeting Aruha to set and pop. Trigger that effect. Summon out Shayama. Now, I just explained why nibbing at this point is not standard and is never going to happen. Okay? Because, like I said, you literally have a trap plus this still. So let's say they don't nib you, because it makes no sense. You either have 2 options here. You can either link all 3 of these straight into a 3-material Apollousa. Now they actually can't nib you, right? Because they might be scared you play this card, but we don't in this case. So it's all these mind games, you know, whatever. So now you have a 3-man Apo. You can use the effect of Shayama to pop, summon, trigger the effect, and you can choose whether or not you want to use Yama here. Okay, it's up to you, to be honest. So you can make that decision for yourself. But you would summon out your Red Dog. You could overlay these for a High King Caesar. And you've basically just ended on 3-material Apo plus Wave King Caesar. So, that's pretty good. Okay. So that's one option that you can do. The other option you can do instead. So let's say instead of that, that's the first option that you can take. You can go into 3 material Apollousa with these 3. The other option you can do is you can actually link these into a Rage. It makes no sense again to Nibiru here because you have Sharvara plus Trap. And they want to hold their Nib until you've used the graveyard effect. It doesn't make sense to Nibiru here. Then you can link these two instead instead of a 3 material Apollousa, a 2 material Apollousa. Okay? Now you're protected by Nib. You can set, use the effect of your Sharvara. And what you could do is you could go Chain Link 1, effect of your Trap to summon from deck, Chain Link 2 Yama, to summon back your Rage, and then you would resolve your Trap, and that would summon out here your Sharvara. Then you could link these into Wave King Caesar. Okay, so in this version of the board, instead of having 3 material Apo plus Wave King Caesar, we have a 2 material Apo plus a Rage and a Wave King Caesar, but we've used our Yama on our turn. So these are just like options you can take if you're scared of Nibiru and you don't want to play Disaster. Okay, you can incorporate cards like Apollousa into your extra deck, and that can check for cards like Nibiru as well. Okay, so I hope you guys found this video insightful. Those are just some combos using Disaster or using Apo. And I hope you found this video more or less informative. Obviously, there are like custom combos, like hands where you're going to draw 3 card combos like Aruha, Trap, and Tour Guide. You can just outright fully counter Nibiru. You can make a Wave King Caesar early using these, and then normal Tour Guide and do full combo there with Rhino. You can make your Wave King Caesar as like the 4th or 5th summon if you open basing on one of these, and then just do full combo by normal Tour Guide. So that's obviously like something to consider as well if you open a 3-card combo. But if you only open the 2-card combo, using cards like Disaster is how you play through Nib. So I'm going to show you one last thing about this hypothetical 1-card combo that was being gaslit in the community that exists. It doesn't really exist, to my knowledge at least. Let's say we open Tour Guide plus 4 non-engine, but one of the non-engine needs to be just any spell or trap. So let's say it's Imperm. So we'd go normal summon, effect. So this doesn't really, it makes a board through Nib, but it's not really real. So we would link these into Yama, go chain 1, chain 2, dump, red dog, search Aruha. This will then trigger to set escape. Use Aruha to pop, summon, and then we'd summon out Sharvara. So if you were to get nibbed here, you would have to use Sharvara on your dead Imperm, trigger the effect of your Yama, banish, and we'd summon out this, then pop it. That would then trigger summoning out Disaster. Then you could go like Disaster link into Rage. And then from there, like you can do all sorts of stuff. You can just like link these off. You can make Muckraker. You can reborn something here. So you have to use your Yama, unfortunately, but you can basically bring back your Rhino Warrior so that what this essentially does is it guarantees you follow-up and it protects these from battle. Because the Fiendish Rhino Warrior, it has the effect that your Fiend monsters can't be destroyed by battle or card effect, or at least this one does first or something like that. So that's basically like how you can play through Nib if you open just Tour Guide plus 1 on engine. So that's something important to know. They can maybe nib you a little bit later, but I'm pretty sure like you can adapt your board accordingly. So just experiment it with yourself. I really recommend it. Just like pull out test hands and see what happens if you get nibbed at different points of your combo. So with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, found it insightful and informative. And yeah, shout out to Top Deck for having me on. And thanks for watching the video, everyone. And just play good. I'll see you all next time. Bye.